I'm Debbie Irwin. I'm the executive director of the Lighthouse Network, and we are getting the chance to sit down with a lot of our founders from Cohort 2026. So now I get the opportunity to sit down with Emily Smith with Side Nerd Apps, hear a little bit more about her story, what she's building, why you should engage with her, and where we're going next. And so, Emily, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Loved having you in Cohort and watching you build and just seeing your journey over the last and knowing how it's progressed. And so tell me a little bit more about your origin story. Where did this all start?
Yeah, I have been in technology for my whole career. After university, I was lucky enough to stay in Charlottesville, and I've popped around. I was always excited about startups. I liked the idea that my thoughts and ideas could have an impact, that I would get to see and learn and deliver at a more rapid pace. I could also say I just get really frustrated with bureaucracy. But I also, I love that creativity and the connection between analytics and research and experimentation and creativity. It really brings together a lot of my strengths and interests. So I had this idea that I kind of wanted to work at a startup someday. My first job out of school was actually at a company called Relay Foods. They did grocery delivery, kind of an Instacart before Instacart, and they ended up going out of business quite a few years ago. But I learned about them in college, and I was just like, well, they're building tech in Charlottesville. I don't want to move. I'm going to work here. And that was in my head, and I worked at every job at that company. I did grocery delivery, I did sales and marketing, I did door-to-door sales, I did merchandising, I learned Excel, like I relearned Excel. I did website and marketing analytics and customer research. And I got to work with a lot of really smart people who, again, none still at Relay Foods, but I've gotten to work with them later in my career and see them like grow and thrive as well. So I just learned a lot, and I learned that what I was most interested in was marketing analytics and product analytics. So I went pretty deep in there. After Relay Foods, I went to a little bit more deep tech. I did media mix modeling, which is regression. And I really learned a lot about client delivery and polish and turning confusing things into simple answers, how to present that, how to maintain relationships. And I brought that forward in my career. I went to Willow Tree Apps next, where I was one of the founding members of the growth marketing team, which we grew from 4 to 50 team members over about 2 years. Yeah, and I was like, it was basically my job to, we said that we were specialists in marketing integration projects and setting up these analytics systems and managing these projects and coordinating the engineering side with the marketing strategy side. And I made sure that was true by learning things very rapidly. So I did MarTech integration projects for companies like IBM and Synchrony Bank. And I, again, got to work my polish, learn a new skill set, kind of went a little bit deeper into tech. And when IBM Cloud was my client, I learned about cloud computing. And I just kind of follow the nerd pathway wherever it goes. And it went to cloud computing. So I I kind of had a stronger understanding than most in my back pocket. Did a couple more startups in between. Then a layoff made me realize, well, if they can do it, I can do it. If not now, then when? I was so excited about AI. I did some reskilling and self-training in data engineering, and I realized I can build this idea I have. And that idea was Side Nerd Apps. It started as a volunteer tracking product where, I was seeing people do this volunteer work, apps, websites, usernames, passwords. Like, I'm a data person. I know it's a simple data entry into a database, but why is there so much friction with how much we make users use heavy tech that isn't accessible to them or that makes them feel stupid? So I thought, what if instead they could just text? I know MarTech. I know the data side of how to make it happen practically. So I put that together with the self-training I had been doing and built the minimum viable product of a volunteer tracking product. And so I've had live users using my systems for over 3 years, and it's evolved a lot, but the foundational model is still trained on those early users in their 60s, 70s of my volunteer tracking system. And there was one octogenarian that told me, like, this software feels like it was built for me. And they'd never felt that way before. And that, I think, comes into one of your other questions, which is like, when did you decide, like, we're going all in? And I think it was hearing that initial client feedback from people who had always felt sidelined by traditional technology, feeling seen by what I'd built. And I wanted to spread that. I wanted to help, you know, herald in the world where the people who say they hate technology can still interact with it effectively, and maybe it doesn't even feel like technology to them.
I think one of the most intriguing parts of that entire journey, because you've lived so many lives already, and all of the things that you've constantly been learning and constantly curious about, is that you've always designed with the human in mind.
For sure.
A lot of times we build widgets or we build the software that someone can log into because we need the pretty data visualization or whatever. So yeah, we'll just make the user log in. We'll make the user this. We'll make the user do that. Whereas you were thinking about, like, what is the thing that encourages the user to want to do these things and want to be a part of this process, and what makes it easier for all types of users. And so when you started talking about the introduction of it's text. And everyone texts. I've always loved that thing of, like, everyone hates tech. If we're honest, we all do. But everyone does text. And that is so true. And so tell me a little bit more as you've been building this out. You've got these customers. You started with the volunteer app. How does it work? What does it look like now that we have really designed something with the real user in mind?
Yeah. So it's a technology. I initially built the minimum viable product, but then I rebuilt it as a flexible configurable tool. So at this point, I use it internally. So I have my own systems that let me turn this technology into whatever it needs to be to solve a client problem. I start by having a conversation with somebody who, the definition of an ideal customer for me is pretty wide. You have dispersed or like an audience, a user base of diverse users, be they volunteers or employees or customers. And you either need to disseminate information to them or you need them to provide information to you. And if they're providing information to you, you need it structured in a particular way, in a particular format. And so this problem isn't really unique to volunteerism. That's probably one of the minor use cases. Whether we are interacting with an enterprise organization system of record, for example, letting an in-the-field sales rep text in natural language and have that pushed directly into their Salesforce or HubSpot, or we're doing something like hosting an always up-to-date information base about Medicare, and answering questions thoughtfully and transparently about Medicare, so people who are thinking about making an important decision for themselves can get 24/7 answers to the questions, and organizations that care about that, such as their employer, who can benefit very significantly from offboarding their older employees, or a brokerage, can kind of get that data in a meaningful way and also be providing that end user a service. So there's really this huge range of products, and they start with me having a conversation with a business owner or somebody leading from a technical capacity about, okay, who are these people? What does their day-to-day life look like? Where are they comfortable? Are they interacting on Teams? Are they in the field? Do they have smartphones? Like, paint me a picture. Who are we helping? What languages do they speak? And that really defines the message channel component. So that's the first component of our technology. You can interact via text, but you can also WhatsApp, email. It's pretty flexible there. The second component is the data extraction and validation. So, depending on the use case, of course, there's different information that might need to be gathered from a text. Whether it is a clear question, maybe people are asking one or more questions, that's data that needs to be identified, cleaned, and validated. Or they're submitting information, saying something like volunteered 3 hours at the soup kitchen last Tuesday. Well, that's a data entry. It includes a duration, a date, activity, and duration, date, activity. Those are examples of data fields that, they can. There's only so many, there are rules about what can be put into these data fields. And so that second part of the system does the work of both extracting those key pieces of data and validating them against hard-coded rules. So that enables us to do very accurate time tracking, to loop until the user has answered the questions in a acceptable way, until we have an accurate and valid database entry. The third component is visualization or integration. I like to say integration is empathetic. If we don't have to create a new tool, let's not. Let's push the data into the system you already use, whether that's your internal database, your own data visualization system, your customer relationship management system like HubSpot or Salesforce. But we do also build and host dashboards to let our end users manage user bases, databases, and visualizations if they don't have something filling that role currently. So it's really those three pieces: message, data, visualization, and with the configurable system, we can solve all these sorts of problems. But I always make sure to understand it's two very different problems. Who are your user base? Who is your user base? What do they need? And then who is the organizational administrative user and what do they need? And the solution is going to be two very different solutions. And I think a lot of times in the market, they deliver a solution to the what does the admin need? And the end user is a side thought, if even. They're an afterthought. They'll just create, they'll just enter their email address, create an account, download an app. Log into it, remember what it's called, have room on their phone for it. Like, they don't think about those things. And Side Nerd's differentiation and mine is just like, we want this to be successful and we're measuring ourselves on utilization and retention, because I think that this can be a foundational game-changing technology, and we're not going to get that unless the user experience is significantly better than what's being provided by traditional technology vendors.
And I love just pulling it back to the counter intuitive argument. We have an app.
Yeah.
No, we don't need another app for now. We don't need to download another thing. We don't need to create another login. I don't have to remember what variation of my password I did for this one versus the 27 others that I just had to create. I don't need LastPass to store all my passwords because I'm texting in the thing that I'm doing. I'm emailing in the thing that I'm doing. I'm taking what a lot of us do with AI right now. I bring up to my AI all of the time. If that is also in multiple other areas of my life where I can like voice to text something to the contact that I need to get into that database to be, I met with Ellie today for an hour on this topic as we're doing founder support because I have to track that stuff. And so like really getting it back to how are we moving with the speed that humans move?
Mm-hmm.
How are we moving with how they move through the world? Is so intriguing, especially with something that we do legitimately all do all of the time, which is text. Now, how responsive we are to those texts is a little different.
That's not our... No, we do inbound. Other people do outbound. So we'll support a little bit of outbound if it makes sense with the use case. But that's not our main value add. There's 100 companies doing effective marketing outbound. We do very sophisticated things with inbound messages that others cannot.
I think the other really awesome thing about that when you're thinking about the user is because it is a simple technology of text or email or WhatsApp or a messaging platform, the opportunity for that organization to collect even more data.
Mm-hmm.
Because when someone wants additional information from me or I need to answer more questions or whatever it is, if I have to freaking log into another thing, it is getting added to my task list. I'm not getting into it. And anyone who is in their 60s and 70s to Gen Alpha and Gen Z.
Yeah.
we all are just constantly overwhelmed with all of the things we have to constantly be doing. And so when we have these mental loads, being able to avoid that lock-in, being able to just like text them the thing and say, I need to do this thing, I need to remember, like, it's so much easier. And even like ask Siri to text them, which is super awesome. And so I think getting to the point where you've built now, you've had some cool milestones along the way. What have been some of the biggest wins in the past several years?
Yeah, I would say when I decided to become my own technical co-founder, that was a big choice for me. I mentioned that my career was in technology, but very heavy on data analytics. So very comfortable with relational databases, analytics systems, integrating tech. Had never written a line of Python. But so I was able to build my minimum viable product basically by pasting together tutorials, and getting, there was maybe 6 or 7 tutorials that together kind of created the functionality that I had in my head. And I didn't even know that you could have a code base with multiple files. I thought it had to be one file. And I wrote, the first minimum viable product of Side Nerd Apps was a single cloud function that was about 1,400 lines long. And when I needed to duplicate it to create another use case, because that was always the vision, I just would like copy and paste it and then like search for the different sections. And so it was quite an adventure. And I knew that I couldn't get the tech where I wanted it to go by myself. But because of my career in technology, I had a lot of amazing connections. And I was able to reach out to people in my network to help me meet some pretty important milestones. For example, I decided to move from Google Cloud Platform into AWS. I decided to implement infrastructure as code and a CI/CD pipeline. And you can imagine those were things that I didn't exactly know how to do, but I did know people who knew how to do them. So I reached out to people in my network who worked for me as contractors, maybe for a few months, and they got the code in a good place. I got to this point where I wanted to sell this more aggressively, and we were delayed. I had my working MVP in Google Cloud Platform. I was supporting probably 5 customers on this volunteer product in Google Cloud Platform using this copy and paste system. It was a lot to manage. Anytime changes needed to happen, it was pretty tedious. So I knew that I couldn't really grow without this new system. And it was months and an extra $10,000. And when is this just going to work? And I got to the point where I decided, like, I don't want to put myself in this position. It's scary. And I think I'm close enough that I can figure this stuff out. So I ended up kind of going into the cave and taking a few months and learning everything, learning it front to back. So infrastructure as code, pipeline deployment, the particular nuances of the code base that I had co-developed with the first contractor I hired, and its many, many files. So I was able to get it over the finish line, which meant it worked. I got it there, and I got myself into this position where anything that a client asks for, I can do. If I see something that looks a little off, I can get in there and fix it in 5 minutes. And I don't think that there's a company that's touching this many AI data integration tools that can prioritize and implement a fix that fast. But because I built the skill set and I'm running this the way I'm running it, I can. And I can learn more rapidly and implement tests more rapidly. And I'm really glad that I did that, even though it didn't make a lot of sense from many people's perspective. But I think it was the right decision for me. And I got a lot of encouragement and confidence in doing that from other founders in my 434 accelerator, which is the Charlottesville incubator program. who had done something similar. And there were no women who had done something similar, but there were a lot of young men who saw this problem, decided to learn it, were willing to talk to me both about their journey and about some of the systems that had been effective to them. And that gave me the confidence that I can learn this, I can do this, and I can be this type of founder, which means that I can do this harder and longer with less help, which I think is valuable to me.
So interesting to watch how you've built and knowing where you're going next.
Yeah.
How hard you've been working on this and cranking on this, and the really robust customer set that you've gotten across so many different use cases.
Yeah.
So what do the next 12 to 18 months look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently I have 13 customers across 5 distinct use cases. I have 2 customers that are really at the forefront. They are so passionate and excited about the software we've built together. One of those is in the Medicare space, like I mentioned, Q&A, and one of those is in the employer question and answer, healthcare policy and benefits. So I have a lot of empathy with this problem. I have my own parents. I have my own frustrations and confusion. I definitely spent way too much on Cobra because I didn't really realize that there was another option. Maybe you've been there. So I am really excited. I'm working with them. We have referral agreements, and they are just so excited to open up their Rolodex and get me to meet people and help me set up meetings and have conversations with these larger insurance brokers and employers that need the sorts of solutions that I offer. And I am just doing everything I can to position this software for them. So that's really my I'm not doing the outbound, but my outbound strategy is really in this space, mainly because I have these 2 partner clients that have been such partners to me. And then I have, inbound people. I talk to people and they're like, oh, I invest in this company that really could use this, or this would actually help a bottleneck we're experiencing. And I love the creativity that it takes to basically take that business problem. First, decide, is this something we can help with or not? Does it fit the vision of where this company is going? Like I mentioned, we're really all about inbound. It's about data extraction. If you don't care about data and seeing things like at that minute level, then you're just not nerdy enough. But
Nerd apps, we do need.
Yeah, nerds only. So basically, building the customer base, growing into larger small businesses and the mid-market, trying to get this on more phones, with continuing to grow that kind of diverse use case pool. And I would say that's really what the next 12 to 18 months is going to look like. Me doing sort of high-touch, white glove service projects for companies that really value this and really need this and are feeling the pain. I think long term, this can go a lot of different directions. One of my visions and dreams is if we look at the way that Webflow, WordPress, these different no-code tools opened the web to small and mid-sized business, and it became the go-to storefront. And it became affordable and fast enough for more people to build their dreams in it and using it. I think that one direction that Side Nerd would be interested in going is becoming the primary kind of market leader in that sort of software. We are different from how other people are approaching the problem, which is very largely like AI orchestration tools, a lot of drag and drop, which is just too complicated, and requires management of message channel, database structure, and integration. So you have to have and models. Like you should be using a custom model for this and updating it very frequently. And if you don't have that team, and you don't have that team unless you're a Fortune 500, like you just don't, you can't hire them. You can't keep them. But so we're going to build up a template library. We're going to make sure that people can make small edits and changes that fall within the framework independently, so that we can have a little bit more of that experience kind of widening to a wider audience. So I think that that's going to be really exciting. I think I'll still continue to grow these individual SaaS products, like the Medicare product, the Link Lead, I call the CRM, or the HubSpot integrated, the Salesforce integrated network tracker, the volunteer tracking system. So I can sell these as SaaS and really build them up as independent businesses with, their own go-to-market distribution channel. So I can do that. I can do a middleware play. So if we're going to enterprise, there really are a lot of pieces that are tough. You want multiple message channels. Well, you have to understand the regulations that go with SMS and email and all of these things. You have to manage the databases and the models, etc. So I do think that there's a play that is more for larger enterprises. That's more of a middleware, like an AI middleware to extract and structure data and push it where it needs to go. And I think that we can develop a product that works for that sort of customer base. But right now I'm just following the excitement and enthusiasm and people who are like willing to put their money and their effort behind the thing that we want to build together.
It's also so fun to watch how people just immediately get it when you talk to them too, or when you show them. I mean, we had a founder in here earlier this week building another company. You did your like little pitches, we went around the room. He was like, wait, I need to talk to.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it was so exciting to see just how people take to this and they understand what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. So if you went back to your day one and gave yourself a piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say trust yourself, because you know a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for, and you have skills that you're not giving yourself credit for. And being a startup founder has been such a beautiful experience for me, because it necessitates living authentically in a way other careers do not. It necessitates it, and it rewards it. And it feels really good to live authentically as a person, make decisions to be doing what's important to you. But before I did this on my own, I had a career, and I think in many ways my other jobs sought to and in some ways succeeded in suppressing a lot of the things that make me and my mind special and able to do something different. And I think the faster that I could come to terms with what it feels like to listen to that inner voice and judge what's coming in critically, I think that helps. And then I think on the other side, I think like it's okay to go about it a little bit in a roundabout way. It's actually necessary. So if I were to go back and say, should I start with volunteer tracking? The sales cycles are super long. The willingness to pay is super low. The amount of verbal yeses you get that then turn into no's because they didn't check with the board, or like the cycle change, it's insane. This is not the company I want to build, but it's what I spent a year and a half doing, and it's what the data started at. And that was a good idea for many reasons, even if it was a little bit frustrating, probably made it a longer journey. I made strategic choices to make the longer journey okay. For example, getting the cost of engineering hires down to basically nothing. Yeah, so I have the time to do this, and the time it took to figure out how to tell the story, like you said today, like it just clicks with people, it just makes sense. That didn't come easy at all. That's something that Lighthouse really helped me grow with, because I got so many reps in talking about it, and I got to meet so many people, and some of those people were really skilled at simplifying complex problems and explaining it in a way, and just going back and forth with them to really dig it and be like, I'm struggling with this. When I say this, they assume this. Like, it's just not resonating. And exploring and experimenting with different verbiages that get people to that point. And it's like, we are getting to that point where I can talk to a lot of people and like 20%, something like little light bulb goes up in their mind and they want to make an intro for me. And I would say, like, just trust the process, keep practicing, keep getting those reps because the story will come together. And a story isn't something that you necessarily like need to be a super good storyteller. If you keep working on a story for 3 years, then it's going to improve and you're going to finally meet the people that can help you improve it. And I think just saying, like, that's okay. It's okay that you're not getting this external positive feedback. Like, you're listen to yourself. You know you have something here. Keep working at it. Work on the tech and also work on the story and also work on the audience. And if you keep going at it, things are going to bloom.
Great truth and insights from Emily Smith with Starting Naps. Thank you again so much for being here. We really liked watching you grow and watching you build. And really excited to see where this goes because, yes, people are definitely getting and we're excited to see as it keeps clicking and people keep making measures.
Thank you.